How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about a movie with a good bit of a cult following, and that is the original VHS, with this really nice, iconic cover of all the stickers on the VHS tapes making this really cool skull. I remember this image when it came out. Very iconic. This is from 2012, and it's a found footage anthology horror film. We have 5 segments and a host segment tying them all together. So we have a lot of different directors here. Some that had a really good careers after this. This movie also stars Calvin Reeder, Lane Hughes, Adam Wingard, Hannah Fierman, and Mike Donlan. And this movie, I do feel a bit of nostalgia for, because, boy, it made a bit of a splash when it came out, and I can really remember that time. It was streaming somewhere, I think Netflix, and people saw it, and especially in the horror community, would go around saying, "Have you seen VHS? You have to see it. Go check it out. It's streaming over here." And it went viral. People started talking about it, and yeah, you could not escape this thing back in the day. You had to go and watch it. And I think it's because, you know, it's a found footage movie a few years after Paranormal Activity. Easy sell, right? But then when you actually watched it, it would shock you. It was this mean-spirited little horror film that kind of shook awake people that didn't know they had been coasting, you know? And a few things with that. It came out before people were sick of found footage films. That's important. But it was also different than a lot of the Paranormal Activity clones. Paranormal Activity, static wide shots. It was slow and cold, and you were trying to look in the background and spot when the spooky thing was going to happen. It worked for Paranormal Activity, but man, when everybody was doing it. But then this movie broke the mold by going farther back in time. This movie is much more Blair Witch. Feet on the ground, moving, point of view camera. And that point of view, you really did feel like you were exploring these places. And in some worst cases, trapped in these places. All the actors were acting supernaturalistically. So it really felt more real, and it felt like you were really there. It felt like you were really there, and any terrible thing could happen, and you were really scared, because, surprise, surprise, hard R. This was in like the heyday of PG-13 horror films, and yeah, people were getting sick of that. And when you give a surprise hard R, like the first segment that you get to has some pretty R stuff, it kind of shook people awake, and then you had this feeling you were in the world from the POV stuff, but then that anything could happen. You see how intense and visceral watching this movie was, especially for an audience that didn't suspect it. Oh, a found footage film like Paranormal Activity. Oh, I'll watch that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I totally see why this made a splash. Now, I liked it, and I always have, but I never was kind of in the cult that this movie had. The thing is, I think this movie is very good, and a lot of what it does right. But I don't quite think it's this perfect movie either. For example, first segment, classic. Last segment, really good. The middle 3 are kind of a mixed bag. And then also with the found footage, Blair Witch stuff, it can get a little shaky and a little unfocused, and sometimes there'll be like a line or something that you just totally didn't catch because crazy camera, you know? It's got that grungy film rip stuff that sometimes it goes too far on. But I think the biggest thing that I didn't like about this movie was how many jerks are in it. And don't get me wrong, jerk that gets his comeuppance, classic horror movie stuff. And I think later on when I watched it with my cousin and he was just like absolutely laughing at all the things that were happening to them, that did help me kind of get it and understand where this movie was going. But boy, a lot of the people in this movie are terrible people, and I just wish there were a few heroes, because a lot of the characters range from young partying idiot all the way up to terrible, terrible criminals. And yeah, I just kind of wish there were a few better characters in here. So the movie does have flaws, but I think with a lot of the flaws, like the middle segments, the forgettable stuff is forgettable. And with this movie, the memorable stuff is memorable. So I think a lot of people remember this movie way better than it is. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think it's a really good movie. And I think that it came out at the right time and shook people in such a way that made it last. And to be honest, looking back on this movie 10 years later, a powerful sense of nostalgia for this time. And I do think it's really interesting. I do like it. I don't think it's quite as good as people think it is, but I think it is very good and worthy of having the cult. Now, all that being said, let's talk about the segments. This video's probably already gone on pretty long, but I do want to talk about each of the segments. No major spoilers, but yeah, we'll be here for a minute, guys. Alright, the first one, Tape 56. This is the host segment, and yes, I looked up all their names. Anyway, the host segment, directed by David Bruckner. No, wait, that's wrong. Adam Wingard. Adam Wingard, who directed You're Next, and he would also direct Godzilla vs. Kong, so quite a good career for him. In Tape 56, we'll meet a bunch of young, dumb criminals, and they're making money by going up to unsuspecting women, pulling their shirts up, and filming them and posting them on the internet for creeps to buy, and they make like $50 or something. So yes, grade A scumbags right there. And there's other things that are terrible with them as well. For example, in case you didn't know you're supposed to hate them, there's a montage of them destroying a random house that I think is abandoned, but still don't destroy stuff. And it'll also keep cutting back to a moment where this one of the guys in the group is trying to secretly film himself having sex with his girlfriend, and he's, luckily for her, caught. But still, I don't know, like, we keep flashing back to this, but I don't really know if it's super relevant to the plot. Anyway, though, young, dumb, idiot jerks, and one of them says, "We're making some money with what we're doing, but I have a job that can make us significantly more. All we have to do is break into an old man's house and steal a VHS tape that some guy wants. Which one is it? He says we'll know when we see it." No way that could go wrong, right? Well, they break into the house, and the old man is dead. He's on his lazy boy, staring at a mountain of TVs with static on them. It's quite the iconic visual. And yeah, so there's the old man dead, watching staticky TVs, and there's too many VHS tapes. So they don't know which one it is, so they have to search the house trying to find all the tapes, while some guy stays back and watches them to see what's on them. And there's lots of stuff on them. The tapes will be the other segments of this movie, and of course, as we go from tape to tape, we'll cut back to the house and see more spooky shenanigans going on. Anyway, our first tape is called Armature Night. In this one, this is what a lot of people remember this film for. It's a big splash. It's a classic segment. A lot of people just remember this movie for this segment. Armature Night, directed by David Bruckner, who would go on to direct The Night House. Honestly, with how good this short is. You would think he would be like the biggest name in horror. He's had a decent career, but man, you think he would be doing everything. But anyway, this movie, you get some young guys that are gonna go partying and bar hopping, and they have a pair of glasses that one of them has to wear with a secret camera in it. And their plan is to go out partying and secretly record themselves having sex with girls. You know how I talked about the characters in this movie not being great. Anyway, they go and pick up two girls. One seems normal. The other one, there's something up with her. She's got these big eyes and she doesn't quite communicate normally. She'll whisper, and you can tell there's something different about her. And when they take her back to their motel room, the night is not going to go great, and eventually comeuppance will happen. And boy, you know how I talked about POV? The POV is extra good here because it's literally in his glasses. It's an interesting novelty and actually a real bit of technology. Don't know how great they would actually record, but they are a thing. But it keeps you from having to wonder why someone would film all this stuff, and you can actually run around a lot better and just be in the moment with the glasses motif. That's really good. Speaking of being in the moment, you will get trapped in this hotel room at the end. It is really intense. I won't say what happens. It is a clever reinvention of a classic horror trope, but when it happens, you are stuck in there just wanting a way out, and it gets super intense and bloody, and you run around action heavy. The first one's a classic for a reason, and yeah, I might have said this earlier, I know some people that rewatch just this section of the movie sometimes, and yeah, there's a good reason. A good story. After that, second Honeymoon. This is written and directed by Ty West. Ty West, you know him, X, Pearl, Sacrament, Innkeepers. This guy is probably, out of all these directors, the most well-known in the horror community. So to see Ty West's name pop up, that's great. And somehow he has what might be the worst segment? Yeah, I don't know what happened. You think Ty West would have the best segment, but this is either the worst or the second worst. It's not great. Second Honeymoon, you get a couple going down Route 66. When they stay in a hotel, they realize that they have a mysterious female stalker. And what this section is known for is the female stalker breaks into their room at one point, gets the guy's toothbrush, and she's filming this, and sticks his toothbrush in the toilet, and then the next day, because he didn't watch the video, he's brushing his teeth. It's not that spooky of a moment, but everyone, if they remember this segment, it's like, that's the one where she put the toothbrush in the toilet. Anyway, though, it's kind of just standard Act 1 of a found footage movie stuff. You know, young couple goofing around. It's not that great, and the thing is, yeah, you know, it's Ty West, you expect better. This really does feel like a section of the horror movie before the horror actually starts. We do get to an ending with a pretty decent idea behind it. Again, no spoilers, but it is just super abrupt, and it's like all of a sudden, hey, this short's over, we're going home. And I'm like, whoa, that happened pretty quick. And there is other things too, like the relationship at first seeming all bubbly and happy, but then seeing the elements in there that don't work in this relationship and where the cracks are starting to form. And there's also this bit, especially with this fortune-telling machine, where there is an element of, you know, bad future forecasting, a little bit of predicting the future woven in these lines here, which I think is interesting, but definitely not explored enough. But yeah, it just seems like a so-so introduction to a found footage film that just ends abruptly on a decent little ending, but Yeah, this one isn't super memorable. And going from Armature Night to Second Honeymoon, boy, that is like intensity whiplash there. So, it's watchable though. After that, we get a section, Tuesday the 17th, which from that title you would think it'd be more comedic, but no, this one's a good one though. Tuesday the 17th, directed by Glen McQuaid, who would also direct I Sell the Dead. In this one, a girl is bringing her friends to a lake. It's a lake that she says she has a tradition of going to every single year, and she's invited some of her friends over. However, the camera starts acting strangely and sees visions of a mysterious and horrific past. You see, something happened at that lake years ago, and maybe it's still there. And we do get the slasher character, the Glitch, which I won't spoil, but has a decent idea behind it. He's a cool character that strangely kills people in very standard slasher movie ways. You'd think he would do something more fantastical, but whatever. A cool slasher section, and I liked it. I liked the visuals, and I liked going into the woods and doing a slasher. Beyond the killer's cool motif and the sort of history and then how this section ends, there's some cool stuff, but yeah, beyond that, it is kind of a standard dumb kids filming themselves in the woods thing. So it's got a really strong element, but outside of the strengths, it is just kind of flat there. But it's pretty good. It's actually strange with such a cool slasher killer that more people don't talk about this segment. It is interesting. Not the best thing ever, but interesting. After that, we have The Sick Thing That Happened to Emily When She Was Younger, directed by Joe Swanberg. And Joe Swanberg, I looked up a few other things he directed, and I think the thing is, he acted in a few horror movies, which is probably how he got this gig. But he's in, like, he directed Happy Christmas and Alexander the Last. Not really horror movies, so here's a horror section brought to you by the guy that directed Happy Christmas. And again, this has a few good parts in it, but to be honest, this one's the most forgettable section, I really was trying to remember how many sections were in this movie, and this was like the last one that floated back to my mind, and I really only remembered like a couple little pieces of it. Basically, you have a couple, the guy's away getting his doctorate, and he's in another state, so they're talking over a video conferencing app, which apparently someone took the digital recording of this and burnt it onto a VHS. Don't know why you would do that, but okay, cool, whatever. So it's a couple, they're separated, and she's nervous. They're having kind of panic attacks, and she has this like bump in her arm that she thinks there's something there, that it might be like a medical problem. And then she's also seeing the ghost of this small kid. So there's kind of a body horror element and a sort of ghost element. And overall, it kind of becomes pretty standard, found footage stuff. Go here, maybe we'll see the ghost. Hey, calm down, this is all in your head. Let's point the camera over there and explore your apartment. Like I said, it's just kind of forgettable and not much happens. And I do wish this section could have been better. It does wind up with a pretty interesting twist at the end that I'm like, okay, that kind of reframes the whole short. And they also, when they do the explanation scene, simultaneously explain too much and not enough. And maybe if this was a full movie, we could have got more as to how this works. But overall, yeah, this is super, super forgettable. And then we move on to the last one. And the last one, I don't think it's as good as the first segment, but definitely definitely picks up there. It's easily the second best. The last one is 10/31/98, Halloween Night 1998. This is directed by Team Radio Silence. You guys know them for Ready or Not, Southbound, also Scream 5 and 6, yeah. So they've had quite the career after this. In this one, you get guys going to a Halloween party in an abandoned haunted house. The guy is dressed up as a teddy bear, but not just any teddy bear, a nanny cam. So he has a real functioning camera in his eye. A little bit derivative of the glasses from the first one, but whatever, POV works. That being said, if the the teddy bear's eye, I think, is pretty high, but it feels like we're looking at eye level. I'm not sure where the camera's supposed to be, but whatever. They go to this party in a haunted house, and it looks like they got the wrong place, because when they go in, there's no one there. The house looks haunted, and they see some spooky stuff, but maybe that's just for the party, right? But then where is everybody? Well, it sounds like there's some noise in the attic. And you really do feel, because of the POV, that you are running around and exploring this house. That really does help it work. But when you get to the attic, it is definitely one of those and then all hell breaks loose moments. Because once this short gets going, it is extreme running around, crazy shenanigans happening, and a ton of special effects work. And I mean, for real, some of these feel like they didn't have much of a budget. Like what happened to Emily when she was younger, that felt like it wasn't made for too terribly much money. The Ty West one also could have been pretty cheap. But this one, they got a hold of the budget and they did some wild, crazy stuff. And you're running around the house while things are going nuts. You do feel there. You do feel in the moment. It's pretty cool. I still think I like Armature Night better. That's much more iconic, but this is a great way to end the movie. Clearly the second best. Starting on a high note, ending on a high note. That's pretty cool. Anyway, that's the last story, and I think overall, VHS is pretty good. Like I said, what's not super memorable about it, luckily for the movie, isn't super memorable, and it has a bunch of other memorable, iconic moments. The girl from Armature Night, how the last segment ends, the guy dead in front of a stack of TVs. A lot of this does work, and I can see why it became classic. Again, I do want to say this movie does have problems, but it's still one that I like and remember fondly. Now that being said, we did get up to 5 entries in this franchise. VHS, VHS2, Viral, 94, and 95. Those are the last 2 Shudder ones. And I think I'm going to try to watch them all pretty soon. I don't really know why, I'm kind of in the mood to analyze this series. So hopefully I'll get to the rest of them soon. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Anthology horror playlist, where you can see me talk about things like Trilogy of Terror and other stuff that is multiple segments made into one. All Hallows Eve, that was pretty cool. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Anthology horror playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.